The Young Ones crashed onto TV screens in 1982, providing a jolt of anarchy and mayhem through the antics of 4 student housemates and their landlord. While only running for 12 episodes, it maintained a consistent popularity over the years thanks to continual repeats and there just being nothing else like it. No, Girls on Top doesn't count, that's a story for another time. Like a fair few BBC series of the 80s though, it did also get a video game based on it. Despite being based on such a popular series, it has never got much attention, and there's a lot of misinformation about the state of it, so I guess it's weird world of licensed games time again to sort this lot out.
It's important, right? It's now, and I want to watch!
I'm not going to go into the whole history of The Young Ones here, so I'll try and keep it brief. The Young Ones was written by Rick Mayall, Ben Elton and Lisa Meyer, and debuted on the BBC in 1982. It's centred around 4 student housemates. Rick, an anarchist sociology student played by Rick Mayall, the sociopathic punk Vivian, hippie and manic depressive Neil, and Mike the cool person, alongside their landlord and his family, all played by Alexei Sayle. Each episode involved a barely held together plot involving surreal elements, slapstick comedy, irreverent cutaways, and a thinly veiled 2 fingers up to the state. It was everything the BBC didn't want, and apparently producers were horrified at the state of it when the show was delivered to them. But given the imminent launch of Channel 4 at around the same time, which aimed to appeal to younger demographics and more varied programming, the BBC were perhaps more inclined to give it a go. It certainly paid off, as the show became a huge hit, a beacon in the darkness of Thatcher's Britain. I would have first watched it when I was a kid during one of the very many repeats, and way too young to have really been watching it, but you have to admit, it does have that certain appeal to younger people. The slapstick violence and destruction, and the cast of characters that are almost cartoon-like in their stereotypes. It just makes for entertaining TV. The actual content is definitely not for children, and most of the stuff would have clearly gone over my head about Thatcher and video nasties, but the anarchic mayhem just has that kind of universal appeal. I'm not suggesting you show this to your children though, and definitely don't blame me if they start punching holes in your walls. Given the success of the show, it's not too surprising that it did get a video game based upon it, as did a bunch of games that were based on BBC shows, which I've mentioned before in this series. EastEnders, Yes Minister, Grange Hill, etc.
Did you see that? Did you? The voice of youth! They're still wearing flared trousers!
Competition for the Young Ones was seemingly fierce, but the rights eventually went to Orpheus Software. The director, Paul Kaufman, has commented on the game, including in a number of YouTube comments, so we can get some insight into what went on during its development. It seems that there were some meetings between the developers of the game and the writers of the show, who provided some form of input and feedback. Alongside the actual license of the show, difficulty also came from licensing other things within. For example, the developers wanted a Blue Peter badge to be an item you could collect, but it became too difficult to get approval from the BBC, so it simply becomes an anarchy badge in-game. Negotiations for the license of the music also fell through, leading to creating a unique single track instead. The game was promoted with a TV commercial featuring an impersonation of Vivian which sounds,
Orpheus presents The Young Ones! At last, the Young Ones come to life on your computer screen!
Yeah. The game was advertised for release on Commodore 64, with ZX Spectrum, Amstrad CPC, and MSX versions available soon. While the Amstrad and Spectrum versions made it out, the MSX one never did. A shame since Kaufman has described it as the best version. The game was rushed out in time for Christmas, and Orpheus went out of business the next year, probably the reason the MSX version never saw the light of day. As it stands then, it's up to the holy trinity of British home computers to give this game a go. In the name of the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC, thy games be licensed. Let's actually play this thing. Okay, we'll boot up the C64 version, as it is probably the best version we can play with more colours and the only version with music. At the start, we can choose from the 4 different housemates, Rick, Vivian, Mike and Neil, but no 5th housemate. Sorry. Selecting your character, you're thrust into your house. Well, it won't be your house for long. The story of the game is that the housemates are being evicted by their landlord Jerzy Balowski, and the housemates must gather up all their belongings to move out. You'll control your character from the menu at the top of the screen, allowing them to walk around the different rooms of the house, interact with objects, and talk to find out what your character is thinking about picking up or interacting with. All the while, the rest of your housemates are walking around and picking up items themselves, so it seems like there is a lot going on. Each character has their own list of items they need to get to complete the game, and place them all in their unique container. How do you know what items are for which character? Well, you don't exactly. At least not entirely at first. There's an inlay that comes with the game that gives you some information on all of the characters, but there's not a whole lot to go on. Some of the items are related to what the characters owned or interacted with on the show, and you could have brought a magazine at the time such as Your Sinclair, which published a map of the house and some more clues. But other than that, there's not a lot to go on. Obviously, figuring out what items you need is part of the game, but you have no idea when you've got the correct item for your character, and compounding this, you need to have certain items to get others, or combine items to get ones you actually want. For the record, I'll list them all as we go. Rick needs a yogurt, Cosmo magazine, anarchy badge, deodorant, a dress book with a girly dress in it, toilet roll, clean undies, record player, and poetry book. And all of these need to be stored in the rucksack. When you start the game, the items are all in their default position, but as mentioned, other characters can pick them up and drop them anywhere else, so the longer you play, the more everything gets moved about. If an item you need is picked up by another character, you'll have to wait until it is dropped, as they won't hold onto an item they don't need forever. The screen is divided into two, so as you move through the house you can see another room above or below you, depending on where you are, and keep an eye out for items you need. The other housemates can also talk about picking up or putting down items, and switching on the radio or TV can generate similar clues, but again it's still very vague. Some of the items are easy to find, such as the yogurt in the fridge or toilet roll in the bathroom, but some are very obtuse. For example, for the address book, you need to put the girly dress item inside it. Get it? Because it's an address book. Address book! I nearly threw the whole game out when I noticed that. Each character will also need to access Narnia from the wardrobe in the hall, done by getting the key from the fridge, for some reason. Sometimes it's also under a bed too. This might seem odd, but a reference to the time that Narnia was in an episode of the show. In addition to the house, we can also head to the laundrette and shop to pick up any other items. We'll need to pick up the bio suds with Rick and put them in a washing machine with his dirty undies to clean them. Lovely. Playing as Neil, we need an Ankh, magic mushrooms, for medicinal purposes, probably, special branch, goldfish bowl with the goldfish in, veggie burger, guitar in the guitar case, thermos flask with hot lentils in them, and a frog. All of these need to be put in the wheelbarrow. Guitar in the case is fairly obvious, veggie burger in the fridge, Ankh in Narnia, okay. Pick up the goldfish bowl in the bathroom, and the goldfish is in the sink when you open it, if you can open a sink. But you can't put the goldfish in the bowl. You need to put the bowl in the sink, turn the tap on, which fills up the bowl with water, which then lets you put the goldfish in. Makes sense, I suppose, but again, there's no indication that's what you need to do. Do you want the frog? You'll have to pick up the joint from Neil's room, light it with the lighter, medicinal use, and then you can pick up the frog, for some reason, again. The magic mushrooms, medicinal use, are probably the most obtuse item sequence in this game. You need to get the kettle, a cup, and a tea bag. Switch the kettle on with all the items to combine them to make hot tea. Drop the hot tea to make it cold tea. Find the spade, get the seeds from the seed packet, and go into the garden. Now, open the grave with the spade and put the cold tea and the seeds in. There's a carrot and some manure in there, but you don't need them as Neil. Why would you want manure anyway, you weirdo? Close the grave and open it again, and the tea and seeds have magically transformed into magic mushrooms. It's a very long-winded process with no real clue about how to do any of it. Vivian's turn next. He needs his medical handbook, begonia, apple, dissection kit, video nasty, pickaxe, cage containing his hamster, special patrol group or SPG, and some salmonella. Alright, chuck all of these in the bin liner when you're done. Apple in the fridge, dissection kit in Vivian's bedroom, open it up for a hand, and put that in the medical handbook. Smash up the video recorder to get the video nasty from inside, reflecting the episode Video Nasty.
It's a carpet, farty!
Get the carrot from the grave and put it into the cage to allow you to put SPG in there. And the pickaxe is probably the most difficult to work out. You need to go into the cellar and drink the oil, hardcore, allowing you to pick up the crash helmet in the bathroom, which has the pickaxe inside. How do you fit a pickaxe in a crash helmet? Why does drinking oil let you pick up the helmet? Look, maybe we shouldn't be looking for rational, logical inferences in the Young Ones. It's just not in the spirit of the show. And continuing this, to get salmonella, you have to put lager, a kebab from Narnia, and biosuds into the washing machine to get salmonella for your collection. Finally, we have Mike, who needs his sunglasses, loud tie, clean duvet, £5 note, golf ball, party hat, kitty, and gentleman's magazine, and chuck them all into his suitcase. His sunglasses have wound up in Narnia, the party hat is in a cracker, wash the stained duvet, ew, with the biosuds in the washing machine, and the kitty won't come with you unless you defrost some peas with the blowtorch. Cats love peas apparently. To use the blowtorch, we need to eat the spinach, which lets us lift the gas cylinder to put in the blowtorch, and use the lighter to get the blowtorch blowing. Buy Lucozade with a 50p to be able to pick up the girly mag. Not sure what's less likely, Lucozade giving you the power to get an adult magazine, or a bottle of Lucozade costing 50p. The loud tie requires Mike to pick up the cassette, Walkman and headphones. Get it? Because it's a loud tie, so you need music to pick it up. Because it's loud. Yeah, I know. The £5 note needs you to pick up the bomb.
That's an atom bomb.
Smash the piggy bank with the axe to get a 10p coin. Use that to call Colonel Gaddafi and sell him the bomb for £5. Bargain. This one is hinted at in the inlay material and somewhat replicates the plot of the episode Bomb, so you might be able to get through this one. When you get all of your items in your container with the character, you will jump outside the house and the game will tell you how quick you were able to complete it. Now, here's a fact that seems to have gone unreported. The other housemates can actually win the game before you, which gives their ending screen and requires you to restart the game. This seems extremely unlikely as the computer controlled characters don't exclusively go for the items they need, but if they pick up an item they need, they will keep it, and all of them can add up. You can, however, easily stop this by holding onto an item that another character would need, thus stopping them from acquiring all of their items. Now, there's the solutions for all of the characters, but there's a small complication that arises here. Various sources mention that the game is actually unwinnable, in particular that certain items won't spawn or are taken by other characters, so I'm going to sort this out once and for all. Okay, so first of all, there's a common statement that the game is only winnable as Vivian. This is false. Partly. When the game was first released, this seems to have been true. When playing as characters other than Vivian, the computer controlled characters could pick up items you need, and a bug would prevent them from putting them down, thus making the game unwinnable. However, a subsequent release fixed this for Mike and Neil. For Rick, however, yes, the game actually remains unwinnable. The issue for Rick is the Anarchy badge, which you are supposed to get by getting the bottle top from the bin in the garden, an envelope from the shop, put the bottle top in the envelope, and put it in the post box. When you return to the house, you can open the letterbox to find the Anarchy badge inside. The trouble is that the Anarchy badge never arrives. You can see on the item list in the shop that there's some text corruption on the list. I assume it's related to that. So yes, in short, the Commodore 64 version is completable with everyone except Rick. The Amstrad and Spectrum versions, however, function as intended, and allow Rick to get his badge and complete the game with him, alongside the other three. The fix for the Commodore version was probably planned to roll out when the MSX version was released, but both were halted when Orpheus went out of business. So other than the fixing of Rick in the Amstrad and Spectrum versions, what other differences do they have? Not much. The graphics on these are more basic, they load slower when you're transitioning between rooms, and there's no music. A few of the names of locations and items are changed, seemingly due to the text limit in these versions. For example, Vivian's bedroom is shortened to Viv's bedroom, and the washing machine is shortened to Clean-O-Matic. Nothing drastic, but the Commodore 64 version is certainly the best, as long as you don't want to play as Rick. Reception of the game was mostly negative, citing poor gameplay, lack of any music or sounds in the Amstrad or Spectrum versions, and just a general sense of having absolutely no idea what to do at any point, and it's hard to disagree with it. There's some positive remarks about it being the first video game reviewers saw that had actual swearing in it, so that's an accolade for the game, I suppose. If you want to play a similar game that arguably better implements the gameplay of The Young Ones, you can have a look at How to Be a Complete Bastard, the video game, based on the book by Aid Edmondson, Vivian in The Young Ones, which was also based on a comedy show he performed with Rick Mayall. The similarities with the Young Ones game seem more than coincidental, especially since the game was made by a completely different company, Sentient Software, Orpheus Software having gone out of business by this point as mentioned. I couldn't find any overlap of developers or people that worked on the game, so I'm not sure why they have these similarities. I'm sure I'll look at it in more depth at some point in the future. There's also some similarities to Every One's a Wally and other games in that series. Look, I get what the Young Ones game is trying to do. It's trying to create a sense of anarchy and chaos that the show did by having all of the different characters move around and act at the same time. And you can imagine what an episode would have been like if they were all running about the house, trying to find all of their stuff. Likewise, a lot of the objects are callbacks to the ones that appear in the series, giving you a chance to act out the sequences and put your knowledge into action. The game controlling the three characters as they move around with the so-called Puppet Master AI is also quite clever. I like the music. It's only one song, but it's pretty fun, and I assume it's meant to be reminiscent of the music that plays over the end credits in the show. The overwhelming issues are that the game is so little fun to play. You don't really control the characters, you just get them to act through the menu, and it takes too long for characters to walk from one place to another. The menus are also slow to navigate, and if you accidentally click the walk option, you'll have to walk to another room before you can come back. You can't simply cancel it. On top of this, there is no clue about what you're supposed to be doing most of the time. Maybe if the game at least let you know what items your character needed, you could give it a good go, but the fact that even that is hidden behind a mix of clues from speech in-game and hint sheets accompanying the game itself make it near impossible to figure out where to even start. The reliance on knowledge of the show makes sense for some of them, but there's nothing consistent to give you a direction or sense of purpose. There's plenty of games from this era that do a similar sort of thing, but it doesn't make it any less annoying. Credit to the developers for at least trying to capture the nature of the show, and incorporating plenty of references to it, but the rush to release it before Christmas and fighting to get licenses for things obviously hampered the vision of what the developers wanted. Okay, that's everything we can say about the Young Ones, and another episode of the weird world of licensed games. Join me next time as we scale the cliff face of licensed games to... Wait. Cliff?